A very good evening to all of you. I understand this is the last session, and the attendance in the hall proves that this is the last session. Nevertheless, the topic is very, very important: internationalization of higher education in India in the new knowledge era. And we have a very, very powerful panel with eminent experts over here. We have with us Professor Tankeshwar Kumar, Vice Chancellor, Central University of Haryana. He has also been earlier Vice Chancellor of Guru Jambheshwar University in Hisar. We have with us Professor Prabhu K. Agarwal, Vice Chancellor of Bennett University. We have with us a longtime friend, Brett Kate Smith. He is the Counselor Education and Research in Australian High Commission. And we have Sandeepa Sahai. She is the Head Insight and Engagement South Asia in British Council. So a very warm welcome to all of you. And I know that this will be an important session. And we all know that the national education policy has given a lot of importance to internationalization of higher education. And so far, till that time, we know that if we count by the number of international students in India, it is around 49,000. The numbers which goes out of India is around 8 to 10 lakhs. And the number of collaborations between Indian and foreign universities, there are many, but many are on papers. So actual active MOUs are very few. And the policy, when it was recommending about even small things like having an international office in Indian universities, having foreign universities in India, having joint degrees, training programs, dual degrees, having Indian universities, campuses abroad, it was something which was accepted with open arms, both by the foreign universities as well as the Indian universities. So let us talk to our panel on how to promote internationalization of higher education. I'll come to VC Bennett University first, Professor Prabhu K. Agarwal. So Professor Agarwal, you are in a private university, and I suppose you must be having some international students in your university. So what, in your opinion, is deterring the foreign students to come to India? Why are we not having enough foreign universities, enough foreign students? And what, in your opinion, we should be doing to promote India as a destination for affordable quality education?
Thank you for the question. And that's a very, you asked me the hardest question, though. I'll try to answer it in the best possible way. As you correctly point out, 9 to 10 lakh, that's almost 1 million people leave India, but only a handful come into India for education. I think when a foreign student, and there are some pockets, our neighboring countries, SAARC countries, African nations, Middle Eastern nations, Southeast Asian countries, where there is a movement of students into India, primarily because we have an education system that's better than what they have at their own homes. And therefore, the affordability index and the other reasons, they also have the whole world that they can go to. The more affluent students in those geographies will be going to the Australias and the UKs and the Americas. But those who are eyeing India are eyeing them from an affordability point of view. Indian universities have also got a lot of work to do in creating programs for international students that are really something that they're looking forward to. Now, India does have certain unique aspects. A fact of the matter is we are the largest country in the world, and we have some socioeconomic issues. So graduate students who are looking at doing research in some very specific areas which touch such socioeconomic issues tend to look at India and would like to come here. But I have spent almost 30 years in the US before I moved to India, and I know in the US, almost all outbound students, 90% of them prefer to go to Russia, Europe in particular. And it's also a question of standards of living, quality of infrastructure. We have to build that in India, and we have not been able to do that to a large extent, right? They require a certain sense of safety security. I'm not even speaking of the academic quality, which is also a very pertinent factor. So I think one way we can think of getting more students here is to by designing programs that are shorter in period so that there is an inbound traffic here. And as you correctly point out, as a private university, I probably am sitting on 100 MOUs, if not more. But some 15, 20 of them are fairly active. And our discussions now are moving into the direction where we are talking about a cohort coming from our partner institution for a 3-week period, take a course with us, with our students as a cohort, and that whole cohort move back to that institution and take another 3 weeks to complete a certain amount of credit requirements. The other big focus at Bennett is for us is really on getting international faculty on our campus. We, during the pandemic time, were obviously using technology very efficiently for this. We have expanded that. We are trying to get to the point where almost 10% of our courses and all our degree programs are taught by faculty who are not on our rolls and are international faculty. And that exposure is becoming very important for us. And that is a way to build bridges between faculty members and our faculty members. Joint research projects, student engagement is increasing. The students are getting an opportunity to look at the global, academic quality of delivery. We aspire to send some 20% of our students on campus on summer school this coming summer. Last year we sent, this summer we sent about 10%. So that's a growing activity. And then, we have some government regulations and linkages that have been, you got to get a certain grade or accredited before you can do this and do that and do that, which I think is slowly but surely evolving, and it's moving in the right direction. I mean, and we are constant policy advocacy with the government is required to keep pushing this enabling ecosystem. That is why do we have to link these things? We are a fully accredited private university that's delivering courses, and meeting all UGC requirements. So, those are some of the issues. I don't know if I've given a core answer to your original question as why students are not coming into India. But I do have my
And what
mindsets.
should we do to create an ecosystem that really attracts the students? Are we weak in marketing? Maybe we have some niche areas, like that International Yoga Day. So whole of the world recognized yoga of India as an International Yoga Day.
Let me put it this way: as a private university, I can say that yes, we are weak in marketing to international students. We have so much demand in India, local demand for our university courses. We don't look outside. All our foreign institutions primarily are in India looking for students. Think about it. Their primary reason to engage with India in the beginning is foot on the grounds. And we don't have that issue, right?
Let me come to Professor Tankeshwar Kumar. See, when we talk of foreign students in India, we have around 49,000, but most of them are from, say, Nepal, Bangladesh, Afghanistan, some African countries. So when we have many, many areas, say like yoga or Indian knowledge system or Sanskrit, or so much of knowledge is there in our Vedas, which people are dying to learn. So why we are not able to tap the students from the developed countries like, say, USA or Europe or UK? So what do you think the reason could be?
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much. It's a very important question because if we look at why our students go abroad, if you study their statistic, you will find that the 33% of the students go abroad and they get the opportunity to stay after their study in their institution. Maybe if you look at the country like USA, Canada, or even Australia, they get the opportunity to stay after that. So that means, they are also not only just looking for the study, they are also looking for the opportunity to stay there. So if we are to, really look for that the students should come to our country, from the developed country, then there are two things could be there, that we should provide the education which is, equally competitive to them in their technology. So that means if we are able to, link over, education institution to the latest technology, and, we invent the technology that way, then we will be really able to attract the student from the developed country also. Right? And otherwise, if you say that if we are to attract the student from the developed country, then we have to give something very different. We may have something like the Indian knowledge system. We may give something on the, our languages, maybe give something on the yoga, something like that, which is not available to them in their own country. So that is possible, But, if we look at our country is so big, we have the institutions like IIC, IITs, and IIM, though maybe they may not be figuring into hundreds, but, their standards are, if you look at their research level, they are very high. Only at the research level, they may be a very high level standard they are doing this. So we have a lot of collaboration from the foreign countries, 12 countries also, if we look at, that is in the research. So we can get the student from the foreign country, the countries which are 12 countries, from the starting from the research degrees. And, so our degrees should be also recognized all over the world. If we look at, for example, our BTech and MTech degrees are 4 year, and, these are 2 year, and so these are recognized. If we look at our, for example, the graduate courses like BA and BSc, I passed out BSc, then I came to know it's not recognized abroad. I passed MSc, no, it's not recognized. I have to do master degree again if I go abroad. Then I did PhD only. Then I came to know it's my equivalent degree abroad. Right? That is equivalent. So now, if we look at our NEP, now we have come up with the 4-year graduate degree, and that I see that we will have the degree of the 4-year degree. So we will be able to attract the students maybe from the developed country or otherwise better countries, where, when they pass out from this country, then their degree is recognized in the developed country. Right? So then you have the different scenario. That's why I always saying that we should start the integrated courses, 5-year integrated courses, where we can have the 3-year and 4-year exit program, so that their bachelor degree is recognized all over the world. And we can provide the cheap education to the country, all of the world, I will say. So where we can, for example, if we look at the education in China, their cost may be around a few thousands of the dollars. But if you look at the country like maybe the Australia and US, and maybe they range from 20,000 to maybe 50,000. So that is 10 times cheaper, 10 times cheaper than some other countries like maybe Ukraine or Russia or China, where it is cheaper. So that way we can also provide the cheap education. But we have to come out with the the outcome-based education, where they can have the learning, they can really face all of the world, in the once they pass out, and their degree is valid throughout the world. So only then we can attract the good countries student in our country. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Kumar. You have rightly touched the nerve. Work visa after the completion of studies, that many students who come to India are demanding. So the issue was also raised with the Ministry of Commerce. So they are working on it. Maybe in future it will be done. So let me come to Brett now. Brett, I am seeing you for a long time that you are working in very close quarters with the Australian institutions, Indian institutions, and you are trying your best to forge the collaborations. And you are from Australian High Commission. So from government point of view, how do you see these collaborations? And also please tell us about the Arch India, which is a very good program of Australia. So how do you see these collaborations, and what can be done to make them more fruitful or more beneficial for both the countries? So if you can throw a light on that.
Yes, no worries. Thank you, Dr. Middle, and thank you everybody for staying on to listen to this session. I probably might just start with just quickly the sort of a little bit about the origins of Australia's international education, if that's okay, because I think that gives us a little bit of focus. In Australia, our international education sector, if you like, really began just after the Second World War. It was really a diplomatic effort by Australia, a series of scholarships mostly into the Pacific and into Southeast Asia, in order for Australia to have closer ties to this particular area of the world post the Second World War. We had, I think, the Southeast Asia scholarships, the Colombo Plan, the New Colombo Plan. We began to get more and more students coming to Australia. So part of it was the soft power diplomacy, which is really the very beginnings of Australia's international, and it still remains critical. We often hear about the commercial side of it, and that was mentioned earlier today. But if you look at Australia's white paper on foreign affairs, education is central and critical to our diplomacy in the world, and particularly in South Asia, in the Pacific, and so on and so forth. But it grew and it became bigger. And I'll skip a step for the moment, because we might talk about student officers a little later if we've got time. But now it's moved into we have student mobility. We have bilateral policy exchange, and we have transnational education. And that's really where a lot of in transnational education and partnerships, that's where a lot of the question that you've asked sits, Pankaj. What we're trying to do is deepen collaboration in particular areas of research and of teaching. And I'll talk specifically about India here. We're trying to deepen those ties. It's particularly had a boost to it with the comprehensive strategic partnership that India and Australia both announced back in 2020, I think it was. And deepening research and deepening collaboration was a part of that. There's a common thread that's been running through this event, this forum today, and that is about communication. I think that this is really critical. It's been called a soft skill in some areas. It's been called straight communication in other people's dissertations. But I think that in order to increase collaborations, we need to see more Australian institutions coming and spending time in India, and not just for the 85 MOUs that are sitting there. There's 15 active, but we've had Australians say that as well. Okay, but we need more Indian institutions coming to Australia as well. Okay, now I know that there's presumably there will be reasons for that, but in order for collaboration to really occur, it needs to be even. And I think that Australia needs to better understand India. And this gets to the point about how do we attract Australian students to India as well, is that India is an amazing country in my view, and not enough Australians know about that. They don't know it. They know the stereotypes, just as India probably knows the stereotypes about Australia. But our population is a lot smaller than yours. We have 100,000 Indian students come to us in a good year. Now, that probably sounds like more than 40,000, but when you look at the size of the Indian population, it's probably not that larger number. So we need to understand India better. I think Australia needs perhaps Australian students need to develop a more complex and nuanced understanding of India, and they need to know what a wonderful country this is. But students become researchers, students become faculty, and it's those experiences that they have that will lead to greater collaboration. The Australian government, the government tries to put in frameworks in place, such as a comprehensive strategic partnership that I mentioned, to facilitate engagement. But we have things such as ARCH-I, and I always forget the acronym, I'm sorry, it's the Australian Researcher Cooperation Hub India. It's really a virtual hub that's been launched. It's jointly supported by the government of India and the Australian government. It was launched by the Australia-India Institute recently. And it's really a digital focal point for researchers to land, to talk about the areas of research that they wish to engage in, they are engaged in. It's an area for people to find resources. It's an area for people to have exchanges. It's an area for people to identify funding opportunities, and for institutions to advertise funding opportunities as well. It's only been live for a few months now, but the more that people engage in ArchI, the greater resource it will be. But notwithstanding that, we've just had University of Western Sydney here yesterday. I think they signed about 10 MOUs. They keep coming back to India now and sending delegations and spending longer time here, and we're recommending that they do that because we think that identifying those common areas of interest and identifying and having a greater appreciation of one another's cultures without trying to change it, but trying to adapt and accommodate. We think that that's the way forward. It's probably more sophisticated than that, but I know my colleague needs to speak next.
Just one additional question, because you are looking at this India-Australia relationship and collaborations. And we know that Australia is a very, very popular destination for Indian students to go. But would you be able to tell us, like, if Australian students want to come to India, what will be their probable interest areas? I mean, which areas they would like to come to India in?
What areas of interest? Sorry?
Areas of interest means, say, for Indian knowledge systems or computers or sciences or humanities or languages?
Yeah, that's really interesting. I'm going to take I don't know the answer to that, just so I got to know what's going to happen tomorrow. I suspect initially the bulk of students would probably come here for things like arts and sciences and agriculture. Some of those areas, rather than IT, rather than business,
Rather than STEM areas.
I just have a sense of that. Yes, I do. Yeah, I think that India is immensely rich. I mean, that's where a lot of our collaborations in water, in agriculture, in agri-tech, for example, that's where a lot of those collaborations are at the moment. So that seems to be the area of interest, and of course, history and language and the arts.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Brett. We have Sandeepa with us. She is from British Council. And British Council is doing a lot in promoting internationalization between India and UK. They have many, many fellowships, scholarships, and many of the Indian students and teachers, they are going to UK under the exchange fellowships. So Sandeepa, I would like to know from you, because there are many vice chancellors here, many people who would like to know the opportunities available in UK, where they can come on scholarships, fellowships, or the opportunities for the faculty members for a exchange semester or something like that.
Right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very pleased to be here, and also very pleased with the opportunity to contribute and present British Council. So as Dr. Mittal has already given a brief introduction about British Council, that we are the UK's international organization that promotes cultural relations and education opportunities. So we are always looking for creating international opportunities for people and institutions from India and UK to connect and to collaborate, for mutual benefits. Having said that, of course, scholarships and fellowships is one part which largely benefits students per se, and also the faculty members. But more than that, I would emphasize on certain programs that have been very successful, like the UK India Education Research Initiative, which started in sometime back in 2006, and which really focused in student and faculty and researcher mobility. So under that, call of expressions were made, and there were interested parties from India and UK who who submitted their bids, and based on their proposals, they were selected, and there was a program that was developed, and that included spending time or a semester program uh, uh, in the UK, or the faculty from UK coming here and spending their time here at the institution. So that's been going on, and currently we are in phase 3, and there's going to be a phase 4 which is likely to come out in the new year. So you'll have to watch the space for that. Also, during this time in this year, we also came out with a new program. We see these as all platforms to create associations, which is the Going Global program, which precisely looked at getting Indian and UK institutions to come together to collaborate and produce joint programs of study. And this is focusing on improving the content and the curriculum together, and moving towards a more lasting partnership, which is the transnational education, to have a more sustainable partnership going ahead. So under this program, although it's just a 1 year long, because this was also an experimental program for us, we've had 40 successful partnerships. And within this, what has happened is that organizations have come together. They have developed joint modules, micro-credential programs, and some are going to graduate towards a dual degree program actually next year. There are, these successful case studies that have emerged. So the idea was that they come together, they work together so that they share the objectives, they understand each other's course structure, which are the usual impediments which institutions face when they are working together to create something jointly. So we expose them to understand each other's education systems, so they understand, what are the course descriptors, what should the course structure look like, what are the due diligence procedures, processes. So that has really worked well, in order for institutions to come and work together and prepare something for the students, which helps them for their future roles. I think that's that. And other than that, there has been further programs like Newton Fund, which focus essentially on researcher exchange programs, to help them build their capacities. So these programs keep evolving and keep developing. And we influence also and help the UK government navigate through these decisions. That's mainly our role, to make sure that we are trying to get both countries working together and helping to address global challenges that we face.
Thank you, Sandeepa. So that brings me to a similar question to Professor Agrawal. We know that there was, the US had instituted Fulbright scholarship something in 1946, and right now we have something like 3 lakh Fulbrighters. Similarly, Erasmus Mundus program was there, and right now there are something like 80,000 Erasmus Mundus fellows who are all over the world. So now these people work as a brand ambassador for USA or Europe. So do you feel that India should have such a scholarship or fellowship program, which should be of such a level and such a magnitude that we have scholars all over the world who are having this Indian scholarship or fellowship, so that they become our brand ambassadors, and that helps us to promote internationalization of higher education in India?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I actually want to pick up from the previous thread a little bit. Just listening to the British Council and the Trade Commission of Australia, it really obviously screams at us that why is India not, much more aggressive out there in their trade commissions and this soft diplomacy, making sure that when we are doing strategic partnerships, and education, as you say, in your country is a very vital part of it, of that strategic partnership, and has been from the very beginning. I know the British Council, it's always been a strategic pillar. We have yet to see a concerted effort from our government to push this as a diplomatic mission issue strategically. And if you think about somehow building these scholarships that you're talking about as part of these commissions and this diplomacy, It cannot but really, and it will take time, but over time you will have a lot of your Indian scholars and education people all over the world in, doing advocacy. So I cannot imagine why that is not being thought of.
We do have study in India program. We do have ICCR scholarships.
No,
But
we
the
do. I'm not saying we
but-
don't, but it's just not at the scale and at the. We
but
don't
that
talk.
type of scholarship may be short term, where the people can come, stay here, understand the culture
6
of
months.
India.
It's also, and I'm just going to say this because currently the government also focuses on a lot on the government institutions and promotes and facilitates things and being a private university, we feel like we are not part of that government advocacy, and I hope we can be part of that dialogue. That is vital. I mean, if we look at it, 75 to 80% of our graduates are private university graduates. So it is important that the government starts taking us along into this. And of course, it's a funding issue, and it's this issue, and it's that issue. But, I always feel like in this ecosystem.
Also slowly, I mean,
Yeah.
of course, the government is saying we cannot be funding the private institutions, but their contribution in policy making can certainly be there. And now I see many committees in which the vice chancellors of private universities or the some from industry, that is there. So slowly it is happening.
Yeah, I know,
But
it's slow.
not at a
It's
pace
just-
at which it is
Yeah, so it
required.
is slow, right? I mean, that's the whole point. We have to push the pedal. We have to accelerate more. So, and we just not can't hold the government responsible for everything. I mean, also, as a private university, we have the decision to make faster. We have the fast, we have speed on our side. We can move the needle and we can do it. But it would be really nice that as a nation, Study India program and all these things, if they can be brought up, and we can be made part of those advocacy and policy decisions. And I think there's a tremendous amount of scope, which I think we are not really picking up.
Exploring.
I think I kind of agree with what you've just said. And I would just like to also present, the picture on the UK side, which is that while I compliment that the Indian government has come out with their internationalization guidelines, this year, so which is kind of given a kind of a, weight behind that ambition. And it's creating, the kind of favorable conditions so that all the universities and institutions, Indian institutions, begin to look and think about it. So that's great. But looking, if I compare that with UK, it's not that long ago that they started with the internationalization. They have been doing it for a long time, but it had been done at, at individual institutional level. So they were still not very systemic. But in 2018, actually, UK government came out with its internationalization education strategy, which has its targets. And that actually gives very clear vision to the higher education sector in the UK. And besides that, they have appointed an international education champion, because you have a strategy, but then how do you implement? So, you've then also instituted somebody who will help the education sector to make sure that those targets are delivered. So these things help if you really want to operationalize.
Yes, absolutely. I think the government needs to put a mechanism in place and be very active and have a time-bound implementation
So
plan.
it's time to have a national policy on internationalization of higher education, like national policy on
No,
education.
absolutely. I mean, I say that over the last 2-3 years, it's a move in the right direction. There's a definite opening up of the government's thinking that this is a good idea. I mean, they have started articulating the frameworks for dual degrees, for joint degrees. That was not talked about. There's discussion about maybe letting foreign campuses come to India. Of course, everything comes with certain caveats, but these were things that were never talked about 5 years ago, 7 years ago. We have had MOUs as private universities for ages, but now we have the hope that something can concretize around this.
So let me know, I'm conscious of the time also. So let me shift to Professor Tankeshwar. You know that the National Education Policy has spoken about establishment of foreign campuses in India. A gift city in Gujarat is being set up where the foreign universities can come and set up campuses, and even otherwise they can come and set up campuses. So how do the universities view it? Do they view it as a competition, as a challenge, or as an opportunity?
Well, if foreign universities are coming to India, it's obviously a challenge. But whenever you talk about the challenge, you should take it as an opportunity also. It's when we say we are really looking for internationalization of the education, that means we have to really give the quality education. If we talk about the quality education, if we have the competition only, then we can have the quality of the education. And looking at the foreign universities sitting here, who will be the foreign universities? There will be a lot of Indians teaching in those universities, even in the foreign. Look at many foreign universities. Indian are the teachers.
So they
same
will
way
be
it
having foreign teachers plus
yes.
Indian teachers who are trained by them to teach the way they want.
Yes,
to
so
be
that's why we say that if we look at our, I was saying earlier, we have if we look at our research collaboration, we have the research collaboration with the top of the universities of the world. So if the top of the universities come here, then we will have the research collaboration as well as the teaching collaboration. So our universities will be benefited out of it. Then otherwise we're talking about the twinning programs and all these things are being talked about. UGC in some institution has already been identified, and then that will be become reality. That will become the reality. Now it is not possible. We cannot talk about a student who has just come here to pay a fee of about 10,000 of rupees. He will be able to pay 10,000 of dollars of fee for 1 year studying abroad. And that is not possible. But studying here, it will be quite possible for the parents.
At least the living expenses of the students
yes.
will be, they will not be there. But then many of the private universities are taking it as, competitive.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
Competitiveness is
definitely.
good.
Yeah, definitely.
Because
I think
students will go to those foreign universities rather than coming to even the good private universities. So there is a certain deal of apprehension in the minds of private universities. So Bennett will
yeah, I think the apprehensions are a little bit more. It's not competition. It's not. It's more around the level playing field conditions, right? Relaxing rules. They will not fall within the UGC purview. You will remain. You can take your money out. We can't do it. For profit, not for profit. I think there's a lot of gray area out there, and there's a lot of noise and a lot of apprehension around this. So I don't think. I mean, I can keep talking about this topic because we think about this all the time.
So when the UGC comes out with the regulation for establishment and operation of foreign universities in India, it will be in a public domain before it is finalized. So at that time, whatever apprehensions are there, maybe they can be.
Yes, we definitely work on it, right? I mean, we do absolutely think that, again, we should be consulted as a major stakeholder in higher education in India. We must be taken into consideration.
I agree. One important thing which the national education policy talks for internationalization is establishment of international offices in Indian universities. Now, when we speak to many of the universities, they don't understand what this office will do, what it should look like, what should be the size of this office, size in terms of manpower and the physical space, and what type of activities office should be doing. Will it be an empowered office? Will it have some? I mean, what type of office? So, from your experience in Australian universities, so what type of an international office you envisage for Indian universities?
Okay, thank you. And I should say this is the first session that's had a bit of fire and spark in it, I think, all day, which is really good. Offices of in Australia, offices of international education, they can range, of course, the institutions in Australia range in size from very small private vocational education and training institutions to our large universities. A university like the Australian National University, for example, in Canberra, might have an international office staffed by up to 70 people and a budget of millions of Australian dollars. But it's necessary as our international student cohort began to grow in Australia, we realised that we needed certain protections. And so suddenly we had legislation back in as early as 1991. We had the Education Services for Overseas Students legislation, which set out protections for students coming to Australia. We have a national code, and the national code has 11 standards by which our institutions that teach students from overseas, standards that they have to adhere to. These are all about protection of students. So we're putting students now at the centre. It's about protecting their investment in their money. We have a tuition protection service that refunds money if a student can't complete that, if the education provider can't deliver the course that the student enrolled to do. But there is student safety. There's complaints. There's induction courses. There's ongoing care for students. All of these sorts of things. An institution must have staff proportionate to the number of students international students that it has in order to look after them. And so as this has evolved, officers that had universities, education providers have had to become more sophisticated to administer these things. And therefore these officers have, they haven't been decreed such as in the UGC regs or what have you, but they've grown out of that. And now they've turned also into marketing, okay? I don't want to talk about, I'm going to replace the word trade for sustainability, because I'm pinching that phrase from a Vice-Chancellor at Kathmandu University, where he said there's nothing wrong with charging fees for education if it means education is sustainable. And I think that once you begin to get international students coming here, as we heard, it will increase transport, service industries will pop up to support those students, which will deliver income to this country. And that income gets counted, and so being counted, or accountants call that trade, but I would like to call it sustainability instead. But these officers for international education, are about making sure that the university addresses, or the institution addresses, any regulatory issues with students, any complaints students have, assisting students to settle in. It's showing them the environment. They know that international students are naturally vulnerable in a new country, and they're set up to do that, as well as the marketing aspect as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Brett. We just had 2 minutes and 30 seconds with us. So very quickly, Sandeepa, recently the Government of India and Government of UK have signed an MOU for mutual recognition of qualifications. And as per that, 1-year master's degree of UK is now recognized as equivalent to Indian master's degree. So how are the UK universities viewing it, and what do you think how it will benefit India?
Right. I must say that Dr. Mittal played a very important role in those negotiations between Government of UK and Government of India, when the mutual recognition of academic qualifications was being discussed between the two countries. So UK universities are really excited and absolutely enthusiastic with the MRQ that's been signed. And at this point of time, I think they have more questions than answers. In fact, right now, we are carrying out a lot of webinars for the UK universities, because they have a number of questions around the agreement to understand, each of those stipulations which are there in the agreement, to figure out, what is possible and what is not possible. I think we heard somebody in the morning, I think the session before, when somebody said it's very important to know what cannot be done. So I think this is precisely, people do want to have clarity about, but they're absolutely excited and they're looking forward to it, to strengthen the relationship and the linkages that exist between the institutions of the two countries. They're also very happy and pleased, because that has been a long-standing, I think, appeal from the UK universities to recognize their 1-year master's program. I understand that this has been going on since 2005. So it's really taken long years for it to, fructify. in terms of how is this going to be taken forward, I think it not only benefits UK, but it also benefits India, because it's also recognizing the Indian degrees, the Indian awards. So the way we see it, that it is going to help in actually operationalizing the new UGC guidelines on transnational education, where we're talking about dual degrees and joint degrees. So since there's going to be this credit acceptability between the two countries, because now that we have a larger framework in place, it's going to create and give impetus to more partnerships coming our way. And transnational education would also benefit the students who have been deprived or who have been disadvantaged in not being able to go to the UK or to be at the home institutions there and spend their time because of high cost, but they can stay here in India and actually benefit from a program where they get degree from India as well as UK, and are able to compete globally when it comes to their job prospects.
Thank you, Sandeepa. With that, our time is up. So unless someone has to say something which is really coming into their minds and they want to say as last words, if there is something you want to say, anybody?
We have different kind of institutions in our country, and we have so many countries in the world looking toward India. So we should open up our universities for those students, those who want to come, to whether they are from Nepal, Ethiopia, Afghanistan. We should provide them the education, and that is what I see is this our national education policy. If we look at, I just counted in where the word international is appearing at least 18 times in the national education policy. So that means we are really serious, and we are even the word like Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is there and Vishwa Guru is there. I consider the Vishwa Guru that when we say that students from all over the world are studying in our different institutions in the country, may not be in one, maybe overall, then we say that we are really in the world where we are really in competitive nature. In the technology, we will be competitive nature. In the social sciences, where we can really contribute through our Indian knowledge system, and maybe we have already said that our country has given yoga to the whole of the world. So that is the way I look at. We should provide education to all those countries, those who are looking for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Tankeshwar. And that brings us to the end of this panel. So I must thank profusely each and every member of this panel. The discussions have been very, very vibrant and very frank discussions. So thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Thank you.